All right, good morning. Good morning. Good morning from Riverton. There we go. Just checking to make sure our levels look good. Just checking all this hay stuff that's going on right now. And I just want to say good morning to all of you. This is the very last REC livecast for 2019. And wow, what a crazy year it has been. It has been a very busy year. Very busy year for the whole regulatory side of the house, and I've never had such a busy year as this from from a regulatory side with everything that's been going on this year, and there's still more to come, and that's the thing. Chairman Pai has been keeping all of us busy with a lot of things, and again, we can, we can knock Chairman Pai for a lot of policies and a lot of stuff that we just simply don't agree with. But when you look overall, he has actually done a few good things for radio, and he is pushing various things forward, including for LPFM and for NCE radio. And we'll talk a little bit more about the commissioners. We'll talk a little bit more about that kind of stuff here in a little bit. We're going to be, first of all, as of right now, we took a bad load last night from LMS. LMS only gave us a 23 byte zip file that's normally much bigger, and so systems are in the we're doing a manual update right now, and so we don't have the renewal numbers as of right now. So I don't have any renewal figures to give you as of right now. And as soon as those become available, we'll post those at the RECnet Facebook page. And let's see, we'll be doing some systems work over the holidays, getting the systems better prepared for LMS for radio. Some of the things that we're finding, there are still a lot of bugs in LMS, and I don't know how much the FCC is going to be taking this stuff seriously. I really think that there are some huge problems with their contractors, the people that they are trusting to build this system. What worries me right now is the fact that in 2020, we're going to have a whole bunch of original construction permits going into the system for Auction 106, and then eventually for NCE and LPFM. Again, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But we have seen we've seen at least one new construction permit application go in, and that was for an FM booster. And in my opinion, it failed in LMS miserably. There's a lot of data that is missing, and the reason why we're able to do what we can do here is because we're using a cross section of both the CDBS data and the LMS data. And one of the things that we're finding, and this may become an issue when if these original construction permits have to go to assignments or anything like that, is that the data is not flowing from LMS back to CDBS for these new facilities. So it's like, this is a so there are some problems there. So I'm gonna have to be getting a hold of Dale Bickle. It looks like that the new stations are going to have facility ID numbers in the 700,000s. That's one of the things we're finding here. So it's going to be pretty interesting. But yeah, we have at least one booster application that has been filed since LMS, and it didn't work. It didn't work out too well. Anyway, we'll be taking your questions here. Today we're talking mainly about filing windows that are coming up, and about various things. We'll even be talking about the turnaround of commissioners as we end this year and get ready to go for the get ready to go here as we go through another session of I believe we're up against. I think we're up against a session of Congress this year because of the because of what's going on. But first, I guess let's talk about Auction 106. These are the relevant dates that we have coming up, and so we have 130 construction permits that'll be available, including a bunch that were carryovers from the last auction, as well as other allocations that were made silent or were deleted, I should say, as a result of various things. This includes the infamous Sacramento 107.9 that Intercom turned in because somebody held their Wii for a Wii and it ended in tragedy. Sad to say. Anyway, post your questions in the live chat there. I'm watching that. I'm also watching Twitter. Post your questions with hashtag LPFM. And we'll get through all this. So 130 construction permits will be available January 29th through February 11th. If you are interested in participating in this auction, and the dates to file your Form 175, which is basically the short form, which basically describes your entity, your organization, all that. That has to be done during that time. Get an FRN first for your entity in case you don't have it yet. You need that. You need an FRN. Make sure that you get that. And then on the Form 175, you're going to be able to select which construction permits you want to go for. Now remember that this is not an open window. This is there's several, there's 130 of these scattered across the country, and you got to go with one of these if you're going to go for that. And so you can do that. We did talk a little bit this week online about on the around the processes. If you go to the recnet.com website, there's a little piece that I wrote about Auction 106 on there, as well as a way that if you are lucky and nobody else wants the channel, that you might be able to get it without without having to put in without actually having to participate in the auction. So just a few things to remember is that it is a commercial allocation. It's in the commercial part of the band. Commercial rules work totally different than full service NCE and LPFM from a technical standpoint. You got to stay within the class, and it is a major complication if you want to change city of license. And also too, wherever you put the station, you've got to put coverage. You got to put a 70 dB community coverage city grade contour over the community of license that is designated. So those are the things that you got to take into consideration. So if you do participate in the auction, upfront payments are due on March 20th. Upfront payments is basically what it is. It's the opening bid that the FCC puts into place for that construction permit. And the opening bids are running from anywhere from like $750 for small desert towns along Interstate 40 in California to $10,000. $10,000 is the opening bid for Sacramento. So you have to make those payments up front. It's done through wire transfer. And then eventually, if you're accepted as a participant in that auction, the auctions begin on April 28th. And remember, you can only bid on the auctions that you made advance payments for, that you made the upfront payments. Now, of course, if you are not successful in the auction, the money comes back to you. It doesn't automatically come back to you. Like with everything else in the government, you've got to file a form and ask for a refund. It's our great bureaucracy. So last Thursday, and we had already talked about this last week, but last Thursday, the commission had their meeting. A couple days before that, they unceremoniously adopted the rules for 19-3, and see that there it is. There are some of the basics right there of some of the items that are that we've got there. So yeah, the rules have been, the rules have been adopted. They still have not been published yet in the Federal Register. We're still waiting on that. Opportunities now open now for reconsideration. If any organization wishes to file for reconsideration on this proceeding, this is the time to do it. I don't see. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Normally, there has to be a lot of controversy and such. So we'll see. We'll see what happens on this one, if anybody files any recon on this one, any reconsideration on this one. But those are basically all the items, and as we have stated in the past on these live casts, that 19-3 really is the writing on the wall that there will be a filing window coming up. And during the meeting that the commission had, they kind of solidified that. And I'll tell you where we're at on that. During the meeting, right near the very end, there were two enforcement actions that were taken on pirates. Now, okay, I know what you're saying. Pirate radio, LPFM, we've got O'Reilly who's trying to equate the two sometimes. No, that's not what happened here. So anyway, so during the speeches for the statements that the commissioners are allowed to give after a commission decision, we had a couple of very interesting statements come out of this, but the one that's the most forward thinking on this was Chairman Pai's reaction. And he finally said, for the first time publicly, that filing windows were coming. Because he was talking about how, how there's normally not really any opportunities for, a lot of these pirates do what they do. Not all of them, but some of them do it because there's just simply no opportunity to do it legally. And he was just saying, hey, we've got filing windows coming up for NCE. I believe he did mention NCE and LPFM. I might have to go back and look through the statement. But he definitely announced that there would be filing windows coming up. Now, the filing window issue is kind of a two-edged sword because, a lot of the timing on the filing window is also based on resources, and it's based on resources in the Media Bureau. So the Media Bureau does have a lot of say on when those filing windows are going to be. However, it is the chairman, and technically in many ways the other commissioners too, that steer the ship. So they can allot the resources and such, and I mean, and before there's a filing window, it does have to, it goes through the full commission, and that's basically how that works. So, we're also coming up here we're in an election year, and this also makes it a little tricky, especially for LPFM, because LPFM may not get their filing window until after the date of the inauguration of, whether President Trump continues with a second term, or whether there's another president, and whatever whatever the state of Congress is, and whatever is the change in the state of the Senate. So a lot of these things come into play on in this case, and this also means, because where this comes into play is where it comes to the commissioners. Now, for the commissioners, it's a little strange because, they have 5-year terms. The commissioners have 5-year terms. And there are certain extensions to those terms. For example, it can be extended early. So if somebody comes on, excuse me, if somebody comes on before the term because they're filling in for somebody else, they're able to come in and then fill a 5-year term, and then they may get extended while waiting for the next person to come on board. But in no case shall an expired term go beyond the end of the legislative session in Congress, the congressional session. I know it's confusing. Anyway, here, let's see here if we can figure out this. Here are the commissioners that we currently have, and these are technically when their terms expire, and when they are, and when they can go through there. So, that's what we got there. John is asking a very interesting question, and that is, what filing system is Form 175 in? Well, it's not in. It is actually in the auction system, and let me see if I can give you some more information on that here. This is why I like the live chat, because the live chat allows us to do these kinds of derailing questions. And let's see what we've got here. Let's see. Okay, that's for the auction search. Yeah, if you go to let's see here, what's this URL? See, there is a auction there is an auctions page at the FCC, and let me see if fcc.gov/auctions will get you there. Nope. Let's try it without the S. Nope. Oh, wait a minute. It would help if I spelled it correctly. Um, but there is a separate system. It's part of the auction system that that will take you there. So now, if you go to let's see, fcc.gov/auction/106, there will be there'll be a whole ton of information there about both this auction as well as auctions in general. I do see a link on the left that says about Form 175. You click there, and let's see. Well, that talks about reviewing, but I believe you also can go in there to file. But yeah, there is a separate form, and what I'll do is let me get some information together on that, and we'll get that posted somewhere on the REC. Probably on the Facebook, but yeah. So we need the link to the auction 175. I mean to the form 175. So we'll look for that. You do have to have a Coors account set up. So you got to get the username and password and such. If I remember this correctly from, I did file some 175s a couple years ago for the translators. So basically, it's the same. It's the same place, and I know it's definitely. I think it was either in Coors or it was in the FCC's auction system, one of the two there. But yeah, we'll get that information out there. Anyway, here these are the commissioner's terms, and I want you to think about this. Because if you look and you see where everybody stands on LPFM, and I do this based on the statements, based on the various statements that they've made over the past few years, as well as their actions. And obviously, I have an opinion, and of course, my opinion is not necessarily everybody else's, but and you may not agree with my opinions, but that's why they're opinions. But if we go down the list and we see Chairman Pai, obviously Chairman Pai right now is the captain. He's steering the ship. He's trying to get through a much larger media modernization initiative, and while most of the stuff that was in 19-3 was not a part of the media modernization, the only pieces that were in there were the REC proposed pieces regarding assignments and transfers and construction periods. He has been very accommodating to all broadcast, and not just commercial, but the fact that he is actually even accommodating NCE and such, NCE and LPFM, and it was actually Pete Doyle, the former audio division chief, who really wanted an NCE window coming up. So that was the talk from the second floor. And I'll tell you right now, we do have some. I do sometimes, I get intel. I get intel from the second floor. I get intel from the 8th floor. 8th floor is where the commissioners are. Second floor is where the media bureau is at the FCC headquarters. So, but of course, but keep in mind, I am very careful about what I say. So, we got Chairman Pai, who is LPFM. I'm going to say slightly supportive from neutral. And so you've got Pai, who's who has been there, who has been doing a lot for radio. I mean, he's not doing anything for net neutrality and doing anything for that because there's still a lot of issues there. I'm not going to get into those issues because REC does not really get involved in the net neutrality issue. That is an issue that is right now being handled by other folks. And, me personally, I support what they're doing. But I am not going to knock Chairman Pai for quite a few things that he's done during his term that have been actually positive. This includes what he's done for media modernization. This includes what he has done with general procedure at the commission, where it comes to the issues around getting out dockets and such prior to the meeting. Now, of course, we definitely do not agree on issues around ownership. You know, the issues that are going on with the ownership, the whole Prometheus ownership proceedings and such, and you know, the incubator idea was a complete disaster. I'm glad that the courts have done some work on that. O'Reilly and Michael O'Reilly is probably on this whole list probably the most anti-LPFM of all the commissioners. And Commissioner O'Reilly, in statements in the statements that he made when 19.3 was originally adopted as a notice of proposed rulemaking that happened back in February at a meeting that I attended in D.C., he did kind of quietly interlate LPFM with pirate radio, and I took some offense to that. And you know, because he is really on this big pirate blitz, because he is very pro NAB. He is a very pro big broadcaster type, and you know, so that's where he's at. And you know, he's definitely. I'll be honest with you. I don't push a lot around. I don't push a lot through O'Reilly. And the last time I had an ex parte with his staff was during the C4 stuff that was going on a year or two ago. A year, you know, earlier this year, last year was with the whole thing with the Class C4. So I don't know. I mean, whether we'll get him to turn around or not, I don't know. Jessica Rosenworcel, who's on the minority. Fantastic. I mean, she is picked up where Ming and Clyburn left off. Very diversity oriented, very much in favor, very much supportive of LPFM, very much supportive of getting more minorities and women into broadcasting, and not through this joke called the incubator. She's still on our side. She's still on our side with all this. So be looking forward to working with her. Jeffrey Starks, also from the minority, just spoke with his media person on Thursday as one of the ex parties that I did. So far, I have my hopes out for him, and apparently so far he's starting to deliver, and I'm glad about this. And I wrote a 3-page letter to Starks, not involving any specific proceedings, but it was basically in reaction to a statement that he made during the enforcement action. Because there's a lot of REC agenda that he was that he was talking about. He hit a few things and we had to talk about a few other things. But you know, during that statement, during his statements on the on those Boston Pirates, you know, he did mention that perhaps one of the reasons that some of these stations are pirating, and he also mentioned too that the pirates that were busted in Boston that received combined about $600,000 in fines were Haitian American, were part of the Haitian American community up there, where, yeah, the Haitian community is very underrepresented in a lot of areas. Fortunately, here on Delmarva, where we're at here, we have an LPFM station, WRBY-LP, in Salisbury, that is operated by a Haitian American organization, and REC is in close contact with them, and we are working somewhat closely with them, and hope to improve our relationship and work even closer. But he did make some points that there are groups, and there especially ethnic groups, that are excluded from broadcasting, and especially I'm going to say the poorer groups, you know, the not so affluent minority groups. And yeah, the Haitian community is definitely one that is struggling to be heard, and is struggling for their piece of the pie. No pun intended, by the way. And so, we've been, we don't have the right commission to propose some stuff right now. But, we do have things on the back burner. And, one of the big things that REC has worked on for the past few years has been the Alternative Spectrum Project. And we are looking at where we can go for the ability to maybe not as much broadcast but narrowcast. And, this is something that's being done in Australia right now. In Australia, they actually have what they call narrowcasting services, which are broadcast services per se. They're designed to be used for religious organizations and for minority groups. Now, keep in mind that other parts of the world do not have the same First Amendment like we have here, so they have a lot more control over what kind of content can be on the air. But when you look at it from a technical aspect, what they're doing is they're using land mobile frequencies. They're using spectrum in like the 150 megahertz. They're also using spectrum in other strange places throughout. They're using spectrum below 88 for this, and just some very strange things. One of the things that REC has been following for the past few years has been the development in Digital Radio Mondiale and its use in the 11-meter shortwave band. That's like 25.86 to 26.1 megahertz for the use of lower-powered domestic broadcasting. There has been several tests of this in various parts of the world. There was, Germany, and Mexico City, and Brazil. There's currently some activity right now in Hungary. In addition, I think the Vatican has a 1 kilowatt station operating in that band. And for an LPFM app, for a low power broadcast application, I think we're looking at probably no more than 20 watts EIRP. for this type of a service in order to cover about the area, if not a little bit bigger than what an LP 250 station would cover. And so I went ahead and threw the idea in this letter of the alternate spectrum project. I've not made any formal petitions for rulemaking on this. I would like to get some funding and to get some involvement. Maybe, for example, like Nautel to see what we can do to get like a prototype low power transmitter that transmits DRM. And I know that right now we don't have a lot of DRM receivers out there. But, you know, think about this. We have this new broadcast band. Yeah, it is going to be subject to propagation. That's why we want to keep the powers really low. And the we have and we can get these radios, you know, once there's a market for these radios. There's several prototype DRM receivers out there. And I just saw one this company was talking about being able to mass produce DRM receivers for like under $10. Now whether they go you got to make sure though that they cover this band. And I could see these radios being sold like in New York City. See, New York City is where I think this would work great. I could see it now. I could see these little radios being sold in the ethnic shops in the community, the bodegas, the places like that where these these radios could be sold. I mean, you're not going to be able to get them necessarily at Best Buy. God forbid you can get any kind of a radio at Best Buy. But you know, I think we got a possible niche here, and especially in places like New York, northern New Jersey, Boston, Miami, Southern California, places where there's some considerable pirate radio activity. This may work out, and so we talked about that. Also threw in a plug for Part 15. For Part 15 broadcasters. You know, everybody who, I mean, everybody at the commission, they think, okay, Part 15, little devices that you could use to listen to your cell phone over an FM radio. And yeah, that's what a lot of the Part 15 devices are out there. But there are some people that are actually broadcasting and running transmitters, especially on the AM band, for intention to be heard by those outside of their immediate environs, like in apartment complexes and such, and next door neighbors and such. And people just want to play radio. We actually have a transmitter up here and running right now. That's running the REC-FM feed over the air. It's one of these little Sea Crane FM transmitters, so these little certified FM transmitters. And so, Canada has their own standard for Part 15-like devices, and they call their standard the BETS-1 or BETS-1, and the allowances on BETS-1 are a little bit better than that of our Part 15 here. And one of the things I had suggested is that maybe we should harmonize with Canada and bring the BETS-1 standard to here for Part 15 intentional radiators in the broadcast band, because that will help in some of these cases, although it would result in some very interesting new applications. See, this is the thing that the Part 15ers need to realize, is that if we legalize something, because we have Part 15ers out there that are wanting 10 watts on AM. They're wanting higher powers. The problem is that if we legalize this equipment by rule at these higher powers for them, we're also legalizing it for everybody else. So there's going to be a whole bunch of intentional radiators interfering the band. And it's going to make what they want to do semi-useless. You do run that risk. Again, this is the same argument could be made for commercial LPFM. You know, if we had commercial LPFM, most of these LPFM stations that we have today wouldn't be on the air. They wouldn't have been able to afford to get on the air because of the auctions and filing fees and annual regulatory fees. I mean, come on. You know, we've got stations that are going to be going off at the end of this year. I know of at least one station right now that's going to, one LPFM station that's going to be going silent at the end of this year. So they don't have to, because they can't afford the BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC for next year. So that's happening. So we talked about that. But we also talked about, with the pirate equipment, is the equipment. Why is the FCC so scared to take on Amazon.com? Why is this FCC unwilling to confront big tech and big retail? And I'm talking about Amazon, Walmart, and eBay. All three, which sell through their marketplace transmitters from China, uncertified, unstable, and even Amazon suggesting through their ads that they have illegal transmitters in their own warehouses. Yet they'll go after Ramsey, small business. Where's the priorities here? Why aren't we tackling big tech? Okay. It's a simple question. Why aren't we tackling big tech? So anyway, that was basically the basis of the letter that I wrote to Jeffrey Starks. And, you know, I thanked him for his comments about that, because I think we've got, I think if we can get, Starks is one of those that's going to be staying with us for a while in the commission. And, when compared to the others, I mean, this is the order. I mean, well, with the exception of Pi being, from O'Reilly down, that's the order that they're going to pretty much go. And so, we've got Starks for a while. Maybe we could do something. See what we can do. And and Brendan Carr. I still don't know what to make of Brendan Carr. Brendan Carr is kind of like the fifth man on. And, obviously he's the newest to the commission. He is the freshman commissioner. And, I don't know what to say. He has really not tackled broadcast issues that I could see. So, anyway, where does this lead us? Well, there's the list right there. And then you can see how long they can go and stay within the same stay within the same legislative session on over there. So really, O'Reilly is the first to go, which is actually good. So no matter who gets the majority in this upcoming November's election, O'Reilly is out. So now, of course, who will replace him? That's the key thing. Now, of course, this election could have some pull on that. Here's the other thing I have heard, and this is semi-rumored information, that there is talk that no matter who wins in the elections in November, there is a rumor going around right now that Pi will leave on January 3rd of 2021. So we may lose Pi, we may lose O'Reilly. Well, we're going to have to lose O'Reilly because his time, that's statutory. And right now, because I hate to say this, but because of the impeachment proceedings and everything going on right now, there's really hasn't been a lot of momentum for another commissioner. I believe we should have gotten another commissioner, at least, because see, O'Reilly's replacement should have already been confirmed and ready to go. And I've not seen any real activity in that department. I have not seen any activity in that department. But anyway, those are your dates. And so, I mean, we've got Jessica until the end of, at least, until at most the end of the legislative session in 2022. So, we've still got some good people there. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because of the filing windows. And, the fact that we can't necessarily run 2 filing windows at one time. Now, we both have, there's different folks have different predictions. Now, what I'm predicting on filing window dates coming up, and keep in mind, what I'm going to tell you right now is very speculative. I'm seeing filing windows for NCE in very late 2020, very early 2021. Now, this was before I heard the rumor about Chairman Pi. And that's the case. Then, that's, and so basically NCE at that period of time. And then LPFM I don't see happening until very late 2021, early 2022. Now, in a recent article in Current, Michael Cousins, very respected attorney, who is very LPFM and NCE friendly, has suggested an NCE window as possibly early as spring or summer of 2020, and an LPFM window as early as early 2021. Now, of course, this would coincide with Chairman Pi's term, and especially if the rumors are true and Chairman Pi decides to leave the commission in early 2021, then that would make sense. So I could see where that comes from, because if a new chairman comes in, and depending on who's in the majority after November of 2020, that will drive who the chairman's going to be. And the chairman doesn't always have to be somebody already on the commission. We could see a chairman, Jeffrey Starks. We might see it, at least for a short period of time, a chairwoman or acting chairwoman, Jessica Rosenworcel. We definitely will not see Michael O'Reilly, which really is good news. I'm sorry to say it, but Commissioner O'Reilly really hasn't demonstrated to me that he really cares about LPFM. and with the rumors of Pi. So that leaves Brendan Carr. I don't know if Brendan Carr is ready for the chairmanship. So, if Trump wins in November, it'll be interesting to see who goes in there. Or are we going to be like like when Trump went in the first time? We're going to be down one commissioner for a pretty long period of time. So it's weird. It is the terms of the commissioners is always been a weird thing to deal with, and these 5-year terms are pretty interesting. Now, of course, commissioners can resign, and if that's the case, they can resign and be out, and we go without a commissioner for a period of time. We go without a 5. I believe the Communications Act will allow a quorum at 3. So if there's only 3 on, and then we have a quorum, and so that's where we're at. And so I feel like I'm feeling really good that we are going to have filing windows. The question is when. And then, of course, the other big question is will we have systems working for them? Auction 106 is going to be the test of that. When that auction is done, and if Michael Cousins' predictions happen, we would probably have an an NCE window take place. Probably during or right after, when the long forms are due for the winners of auction 106. Okay, questions. Let's see. We got looking at questions here. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat on YouTube. I'm going to also look at the recnet.com in the REC page at Facebook, as well as on Twitter, hashtag LPFM. Questions here. Would it be viable for an LPFM that wants to upgrade to NCE to participate, or would it be better to wait for a potential window in late 2020? I think this is a question, and I think the context of this question was originally around the auction 106. Well, here's the thing. If you are in an area where there is an allotment available, and that allotment will suit you for this auction 106, then you have 2 choices on how to go here. We can you can go with, if you're willing to pay to participate in the auction, if you want to participate in the auction for that allotment and compete with the commercial folks, you can do that. And then when, and if you do win the auction and you do pay, once you pay, the auction, whatever the auction is. Now, keep in mind that new organizations do get bidders credit. LPFM stations do not count as media holdings for the purpose of counting the number of mass media holdings that you have in terms of getting bidders credit in the auctions. And so if you do decide to go that route, and then what you do is when you file your long form, you file your long form as a non-commercial educational organization, then you don't pay the filing fees that you would also have to pay in addition to what you pay with the auction, and then you wouldn't be paying annual regulatory fees. and you would have a commercial allotment, but you would be a non-commercial educational status. Now, the other way to do it would be the total crapshoot, and that's to file a Form 175 as a non-commercial. What will happen there is if you file a 175 as a non-commercial and you state that location, that one allotment that you're looking at, if nobody else files a 175 on that allotment as a commercial status, then you're basically a tentative selectee. And then you won't pay anything. You move forward, and then you can file a long form for that. And basically, that's the sneaky way to get in. But again, that's only if nobody has expressed any interest in that allotment on a commercial basis. If even one party makes an upfront payment and puts in for that allotment as a commercial, they file a commercial 175, your 175 will go, it will be dismissed. You will not be allowed to change it from non-commercial to commercial, and vice versa. You cannot change from commercial to non-commercial. Now, here's the question, of course, comes up too is, what if I do commercial and I am the only one that did it? Well, you only have to make one bid. Basically, the upfront, the opening bid for that facility, and then of course you get your, your bidder's credit tacked on to that. You'll get your bidder's credit. I believe that's up to 30%. I believe 30% bidder's credit if you have no other mass media holdings. And remember, LPFM is not considered a media holding. So, a 750 allotment would, go down, a little bit there. And, so, yeah, if you really want to play the auction game, it's a little tricky. REC will help with 175 filings. REC will also help with your long forms. We will not do your bidding for you. Okay? You're responsible for your own bidding. You're responsible for making your own payments. You're responsible for your own wire transfers. Uh-oh. I'm hissing! Oh, no. Oh, no. Am I, let me see if I... Better now? Really? Okay. I knocked... Somebody send me a new cord. Let me see if I can hear myself coming back. Are we better now? Are we really that bad? I got to hear myself come back. Okay, I know. Somebody send me a new cord. Okay, I just listened to myself coming back. I'm like, okay, I'm a little clearer now. Clear as mud. Yeah. We're not that... Also, to keep in mind, I've got a heater running. It is... We got down into the teens last night. Oh, good. See, this is what it takes to get the... To get the people listening out of the woodwork and into the chat window, is just throw a little static on there and... All right, so where are we at here? We were talking about the auctions. And so yeah, if you want to play in the auctions, it's a little tricky, but we'll do your... Yeah, we won't do your wire transfer, your money, or anything like that, so we're not going to be able to do that, but we'll definitely be able to do the long forms. And again, even though if you're non-commercial, it's still commercial rules above 92. There are specific rules that you got to follow above 92. So, got to make sure of that. And then, of course, we have the filing window, coming up for NCE below 92, which they've got their own different set of rules down there. During the ex parte, I had ex partes after the meeting, and after we chatted last week. I did have meetings with the audio division. I did have a meeting with Chairman Pai's media advisor, as well as Commissioner Stark's media advisor, and pretty much most of the discussion was around MB docket 19193, trying to revive LP 250. That is really our biggest priority right now, is to give LP 250 the right time of day. So we've got to get LP 250 going. And this is the biggest one of the biggest regulatory priorities right now here is LP 250. Translator relief, which is where an LPFM station should be allowed to use contours instead of distance separation between LPFMs and translators to protect translators. There's nothing statutory that requires LPFMs to use these distance separations. And because of the proliferation of the translators popping in all over the place, it's unfair because they get a bigger piece of the pie. Again, no pun intended. Because they're being protected like a non-directional station, even if they're very directional. And 3, the ability for LPFM stations to short space themselves. We just had there was a test application that was put in. It was a test application for a real situation. And this was in Southern California, where we tried to put 2 LPs less than 24 apart, about 20.5, 21 kilometers apart. There was intervening terrain. We were also offering to use directional aspects of the antennas to prevent a contour overlap. The FCC came back and said no, our waiver request was not compelling enough. And so we're looking at different options for those organizations. And so that's pretty much what we got there. Talked a little bit about the public notice issues, that we must move off of the ability, the requirement to use newspapers for public notices. So we got to get ourselves out of that running. So that's where we're at on that. And then we also talked about was the NCE proposal that I put in, which is RM11846, I believe. And that is the ability for about 2,000 identified communities across the country that are currently not able to that would not be able to participate in this next NCE window because of the fact that there's no channels available because of second or third adjacent overlap. And these are small communities that have no other services licensed to them, and they're not in any urbanized area, and that the reason that they are in that situation is because the stations that are blocking the ability for them to get a channel are all serving an urbanized area. So what we're asking for is a reverse of what's called the Raleigh waiver, where where they are allowing some overlap in second and third adjacent, but in this case it's the station that would be receiving the interference, the so-called non-destructive second and third adjacent channel interference, that's requesting the overlap. Whereas what we're saying is that this would be the station that would be doing the second or third adjacent channel non-destructive overlap interference that would be requesting it. And what we're saying is we need to have a de minimis zone of interference where with the least number of people within that overlap zone, And if we can make a showing, if you can make a showing that within that overlap that there is either less than 3,000 people or 0.5% of the impacted station's service contour, whichever's less, in that area, then that would be acceptable interference. This is consistent with full service to channel 6 rules. This is consistent with digital television rules that allow some population in the overlap zones. This is consistent with the way that LPFM was handled back in the previous decade in the zeros, in the late zeros for displaced LPFM stations. This was before the Local Community Radio Act. You know, where they did allow some overlap in the where they did allow some overlap, and they basically said at that time was that the public interest of maintaining the LPFM station had priority over some overlap in a second or third adjacent. Now, of course, this all changed with the Local Community Radio Act from an LPFM context. So that, you know, that's going to be a so that's pretty much what we've got. So where are we at? Okay, John asks, what if there's more than one nice, I think he meant to say NCE bidder. If there's more than one NCE bidder, and that in this extremely rare utopian case where there were 2 filers for 175s, and they are both non-commercial. There's no commercial competing 175s for a particular permit. My understanding is that it would kick into the normal mutually exclusive policies for non-commercial educational stations, and you could find those rules in subpart I of subpart K of part actually look in I and K of part 73, because these are you know, and this is because you see, this is not the situation. See, this is a different situation than the reserving the channel for non-commercial. Now, there is a separate process that you can go through where you can reserve a channel above 92 if you're able to make a showing that no channels are available below 92, and that the proposed channel, the proposed station that you're putting in, is going to provide first or second non-commercial educational full power service to a significant area that currently doesn't get, you know, first or second service right now. And then you've got conditions where you have to follow that. You can't go down, you know, and such. And basically what happens is when that happens, the FCC will reserve the channel, reserve that allotment, and not put it up for auction, but eventually put it into a filing window that would be restricted to just that. The last one of these that we did was in 2010, where it was done that way. But what we're talking about here is if you file in 106, and this just happens to be the rare situation where you have 2 NCE applicants who file on a, who file, then the normal procedures, my understanding is the normal subpart I procedures would go into effect. That's my understanding. And so they would look at whether they would give priority to whether the organization has whether the proposal is placing first or second educational service over a particular area. And that gets first priority. Then it goes into the point system. And then if it's tied on points, then they look at the number of media holdings that your organization has, the number of applications that you filed in the in this window, or that you filed in this window. And then the other thing, which is new with 19-3, is that if there's still a tie, and if your organization was continually in existence since the last filing window, basically since 2007, and you were a filer in 2007 and you lost out on points in 2007 or 2010, then you have priority in 2017 or in 2020 with if that's the case. If there's still a tie, then the two applicants would need to first try to enter into a timeshare agreement. And if you can enter into a timeshare agreement or a settlement where the other group agrees to drop off, you stay on, or you agree to drop off, they stay on, then fine, you've got, that's settled. If there's still not a settlement there, the FCC, under the new rules, are going to look at the community presence dates for each organization. And there'll be 2 slots available, I think 3 a.m. to 3 p.m. or 2 a.m. to 2 p.m., something like that. And they will give the older station first dibs and say, which one do you want? And then the other station will get the other. But here's the thing, you are in a involuntary timeshare situation. And for the first time with full service NCE, with 19.3, those licenses will be non-renewable. The way if you get stuck in a non-renewable situation, the only way you can go renewable is to work with the other organization and get a timeshare agreement, even if it's the same hours. As long as you've got a timeshare agreement, as long as what the FCC wants is the FCC wants the 2 stations talking to each other. Is basically what it is. As long as you have a timeshare agreement, that's going to take you completely out of the worry, and this applies to both LPFM and NCE. That'll take you out of the whole worry of having to have a non-renewable license. Let's see, more questions. Okay, this one was asked a lot earlier, and I'm sorry I haven't gotten to it yet here. Can I build a low-power FM station on an unused AM tower? Yes, but, okay, I will say it that way. The problem that you're going to have with building a facility, you can use a non-hot AM tower. If there's no chance that tower is ever going to be lit up again for an AM station, there shouldn't be an issue. However, if this is a case where this is a tower that was originally a part of a directional station that has decided to go non-directional at a lower power, still keep the antennas up, still keep the towers up, but they've decided to go non-directional and only keeping one of maybe 2 or 3 towers hot, then you're going to have some very interesting issues that you've got to deal with. If those antennas are close by, then the AM station needs to be involved. There are measurements that need to be taken. And especially in this case, because there's a great chance that antenna, that tower, that retired AM tower, it's going to be base insulated. And when you're dealing with a base insulated tower, it's still, even though it's not a part of the hot antenna system, it is still computed when they do their when they do their RMS calculations and such, and keep in mind, I'm not this fantastic super electrical engineer expert on AM, but I do know a few things. Is if they take resistance measurements and such, and the base insulated towers are considered a part of that. Even any nearby base insulated towers have to be computed in there. And if you're adding an antenna structure, if you're adding like a 1-bay or a 2-bay antenna on that tower, you're actually making changes to the tower. You're making changes to the design of that unused tower, and that could impact the performance of a nearby AM station. In that case, the FCC is going to put a condition on there, and they're going to require you to coordinate with the AM station. The AM station may have to do a change. They may have to do a measurement change. So the AM station may have to file a Form 301 or 302 in this. Actually, I think it would be a Form 302 for direct measurement. But they would have to file a Form 302. There's filing fees involved with that. It's a mess. It's a mess. If it's a situation where you are going on to like somewhere like American Tower, and that tower just happens to be within the appropriate distance of an AM station, and there's two things that are looked at on that that they look at. They look at the distance from the AM tower, and it's 1 wavelength for non-directional, 10 wavelengths for directional, but no more than 3,000 meters. And then they also look at the electrical distance. And electrical distance is based on electrical degrees, and it's based on the towers, on the heights of the two different towers. And so there's some various things there. But in many cases, where if the tower that you're wanting to go on is not base insulated, then you'll usually be able to get around all the reporting requirements. You just have to make a note of that when you file your 319 with the FCC. So that was a great question, and hopefully that's a good answer for you. But yeah, it is possible, and I have done several LPFMs and translators, especially on hot AM towers. Now on hot towers, there is additional equipment that has to, you have to do an isocoupler. So that way the actual transmitting the actual FM antenna does not become part of the AM system. It isolates the FM radiators from the AM system. So there is that, and we've done them on dead towers too. So I mean, there's definitely some experience with that, with doing that. No. How will digital radio affect low power FM? At this time, I don't think there. Okay, I will say this. There has already been one issue that's come up since we've gone to HD radio. But I mean, overall, right now, I mean, there's no additional protection requirements for an HD station. The FCC has made that very clear in several cases, including the Birmingham case. They have, that there's, that just because a full service station is running digital does not afford them any additional protections from LPFMs. We had a LPFM, we had a second adjacent complaint during the window. We had a second adjacent objection against a couple of LPFMs in Birmingham. And what they were claiming was because of the digital sidebands of HD radio, that FM stations running digital should be afforded first adjacent channel protection from a LPFM that's on a second adjacent channel. And that, the FCC has pretty much said, no, that's not the case. You're still protected like a second adjacent channel station. Those sidebands are definitely, wreaking some havoc. Now, where we are seeing real-world situations with the HD radio on FM is with is a phenomenon that I'm calling HD hijack. I've already heard a couple situations like this. You have a very distant, a far away, full service, maybe like a Class C or B, high-powered FM station. And then you have a smaller community that is within the legal distance for distance separation, but maybe still inside the interfering contour of that big station. Or perhaps that big station is, or that big station might be on a grandfather or something like that. Which in the digital case is not always the case, because there's some issues with there's some separate rules for grandfathered superpowered stations with digital. But what we're seeing is this: is that because of the sidebands that digital radio runs, that HD radio runs, you got those two sidebands on each side of the analog carrier on FM, that we're seeing that in some cases, if the radio receiver is able to decode the HD signal, despite the fact that the station that the station being monitored analog is the local LPFM or translator, or even a small Class A station or something, if the receiver is able to decode the very distant HD sideband coming from another station, the HD radio receiver will kick over to the HD signal, block out the local station, and take the HD from the distant station. We've seen this happen. This has already happened to an LPFM. And is most likely to happen to LPFMs and translators, because LPFM and translator stations can come inside the interfering contours. And it's a phenomenon we call HD hijack, because the HD sideband signal, the digital sidebands, have hijacked a local analog station, because the analog station is not running those extra those extra sidebands, so they've got nothing to counteract it. They've got nothing to counteract it at all. It's like, it's kind of like an umbrella effect, I guess you could say, where there's this rain coming down on you. You hold up this little umbrella, and yeah, the umbrella may not be raining on you directly, but it's going to be raining around you still. And that's basically what HD hijack is like. The signal's coming around you. The problem is that the HD radio picks up that rain that's coming around you and says, hey, I'm detecting rain. Oh, I better switch over. I don't care. I can't tell. I have no way of knowing that the station that's running an analog that I'm listening to right now is the same station that I'm hearing the sidebands for. I hear sidebands. I'm going to switch. That's the logic of HD radio. And that's how that all works. The only way to counteract that is for the LPFM station to go HD. A couple of them already have. And honestly, I'm working with a couple others to get them on. I do like HD radio. I mean, I'm actually on board with HD radio. I'm not on board, though, with MA1 mode at nighttime, which is the AM nighttime mode. That's the hybrid. I'm not on board with MA1 at night, but I am on board with MA3, even at night. And that's the new all-digital mode on AM that's being experimented with. and it's kind of neat. And I'm also a fan of DRM. And we were talking earlier about 11 meters. And operating DRM, which the FCC has already accepted for high frequency broadcasting, would make a lot of sense. And again, when we have a different... Right now, I'm not pushing this through because A, I'm not budgeted, nor do I have any sponsors right now for experiments. I would like to do some experimental broadcasting. I would like to run some experiments. I would like to see somebody do a New York City experiment with this. I would like to see one of these stations put in Brooklyn, right in the heart of where the pirate activity takes place. Pirate Central, yo ho ho, and a bottle of yum. I would like to. I would like to see those. I would like to see that kind of experiment take place, because one of the things the New York Broadcasters Association did say a while back was that God, I hope I didn't go static again. One of the things that the New York Broadcasters Association said in testimony to Congress in support of the Pirate Act was that people were putting 3 kilowatt stations right on the roofs of the apartment buildings, like in Brooklyn and such. And it was a public health hazard. And actually it is. 3 kilowatts that close to the human heads in an uncontrolled environment can be pretty dangerous. And this is where I have to support, the broadcasters. But this is why I'm saying, if 15 watts or 20 watts on top of an apartment building in an authorized facility, on top of any building out there, with neighborhood, basically borough-wide coverage, I guess, I mean, if we can get like a station that can cover like all of Brooklyn and Queens, and it being in this high frequency on this HF band, and be low powered enough that it covers the area with digital signal, low powered enough where it could be put on the roof fairly close, but still, I mean, there would still be rules regarding location and such, as far as how close it can be to a human head. But still not powerful enough to really cause skywave propagation, unless we are in a day that we have this massive sunspot number. And we've ran all the numbers. We have HF propagation tools here at REC. We can do shortwave broadcasts. We can do the same broadcast predictions that the major shortwave broadcasters use. Then like the VOAs, the WWCRs, the KVOHs, the WBCQs, the big shortwave stations. We have that kind of software. That is that's where we're at there. No, when I say I support the broadcasters, I'm just saying is that I'm supporting the fact that that these pirate stations are running, some of these stations are running very high powers, and they are running with antenna systems that would not meet the OET environmental protection guidelines. That's what I'm saying. And because they are unlicensed stations, there's no checks and balances put in place. For example, when we do a licensed facility, especially in the full power world, when we do a licensed facility, in many cases, we have to include an RF study. There's a tool out there called FM Model that we use that will measure, and we have a version of that available on our website, recnet.com/fm-model, and you put in the frequency, the type of antenna, which is usually, like these side-mounted antennas that we use in FM are considered the ring stub antennas. And then you put in your vertical power, your horizontal power, the height, and and then you can, and then it will give you the guidelines. To be clear, I said I support the broadcasters on this issue, which is the pirate radio issue. I don't think it's right that we have uncontrolled RF sitting on rooftops. That I agree with the broadcasters on. That's all I'm saying. And, this is the issue with the Pirate Act. And I know that, again, I wanted to make sure that the Pirate Act protects the Part 15ers. Some of the, you saw some language in there about Part 15. I was actually, I've done some interceding in the Pirate Act to make the Pirate Act, to make sure that the Part 15ers, because one of my biggest concerns was that I did not want to see the Part 15ers being going out, being targeted here. And if anything, what I pushed for in the Pirate Act was, extreme cases, like what happened in Boston. That's an extreme case. And, in that case, we have, in those cases, yeah, I mean, there was, what the, those cases would have been good Pirate Act test cases. And, again, I agree with Commissioner Starks that in many cases, these pirate stations are basically a cry for help, especially from minority communities, that there's no spectrum available. Unfortunately, because of many reasons, mainly because of the fact that we only have 100 FM channels. In some of these places like New York, especially New York, we can't make any more spectrum available. We're trying to get water out of a turnip here, people. There's just no room. There's just simply no room. And when you've got pirates there that have gone to the point of where they're going on first adjacents to full service stations, they're desperate. Can I have my high school build my low power FM station? My high school still has a good relationship with me after I graduated. Perhaps. They'd be the licensee. They'd be responsible for everything that goes over the air. And also, too, is there space that's available for a new station? I mean, I know where you're out on Long Island. If you're in Eastern Long Island, yeah, perhaps. But, if you're closer to Western Long Island, Nassau County, that way, closer to the, closer to the 5 boroughs, yeah, you may have a harder time. Yeah. Since I've been out here in Delmarva, I don't think I've ever heard any pirates. I haven't heard any pirates out here. And we've got a lot of, quote, open spots on the dial. Although here in Riverton we have like 5 potential LPFM channels, and they're all second adjacents with very far away second adjacent short space stations, which means either high towers or very creative directionals. So this is going to be a challenge for us here if in the next window we decide to get an LPFM here in Riverton. That's going to be a challenge for us. But that's but yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, any educational organization can be can be a licensee of an LPFM station. So there we go. So there, we talked about a lot of things here. If anybody else has any other questions, feel free to throw them this way. But, this is the last time we're going to be able to do this year. We'll be back again in January. Next 2 weeks, we're going to be... One of the things we'll be working on is we'll be doing some system updates. This will mainly, we'll be putting the cones out on FCC data. We're doing a little more. We're gonna have to do a little more work on the LMS conversion. We're finding more problems with LMS, and we're afraid that there will be some problem unless they fix something between now and April. There will be some issues with LMS come auction 106, and not necessarily from a filing perspective, but from a raw data perspective. And see, that's where I'm concerned, because I run all these tools that use the raw data. And right now, the raw data that's going in for FM broadcast is not as elaborate as it is for television. And in FM, they're missing. There's still a lot of data that's missing from the raw data feeds, and so we need to get that squared away, especially since we're going to be seeing our first new FM stations that were not originally filed for in CDBS, and so they're filed for the first time in LMS. We've already seen one booster filed this way, and it does not look right at all in LMS. And we're having some major issues with that. And we've also got new facility ID numbers, 6-digit numbers beginning with a 7. And this new booster, I can't pull it up even in the FCC's FM query tool, even though they claim the FM query tool has been converted to LMS. So there's still a lot of problems on both ends. And if we start seeing all these auction 106 new facilities coming in, and there's no data for them, yeah, then we've got some issues. Again, these are issues that we're working. We may not be able to solve all the world's problems over the holidays, but there will be some times when the systems will be unavailable, and that's the reason why. When it comes around there, we're coming to the end of the year. REC has done a lot of work this year, and a lot of this was out-of-pocket work. Especially the regulatory stuff. If you do appreciate what REC does, there's a few things to do. First of all, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Like this video, subscribe to YouTube channel. That's the first thing. And it's like there. It says please subscribe. And then the other thing is that to help contribute to REC Networks, you can do so right there. PayPal.me/RECNET. Feel free to drop a little, drop a lot. Just don't drop your drawers. That'd be weird. All right. Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? And we're just waiting for YouTube delay here. Again, please subscribe to the channel. And make sure that you're following REC on Facebook and Twitter. Those are the official Facebooks and Twitters. Facebook at RECNet and Twitter at RECLPFM. Please subscribe to this channel. Okay, not hearing anything. I think we will go ahead and call it for the year. As always, if you have any questions, any inquiries, lpfm@recnet.com. We'll be watching that over the holidays. We're not shutting down. Maybe just for Christmas. But overall, we'll be here. We'll be on watch. LPFM at recnet.com. 1-800, I'm sorry, 1-844-REC-LPFM. Facebook RecNet. Twitter, REC-LPFM. And email at lpfm at recnet.com. So we'll be around in case you need us. And until then, we'll chat soon. And on behalf of everybody here at REC, have a very Merry Christmas. And I will say that. I'll also say Happy Holidays. And Happy Hanukkah. And whatever other holiday that you follow. You know, equal opportunity here. You know, there's no war on Christmas here. You know, we don't have any red Starbucks cups. Anyway, everybody have a very safe and happy holiday. Happy New Year. And we'll see you on the other side. All right. Just have a good one. And also I just want to make one thing clear though too, is that what we discuss here on the REC channels, we try to keep REC as apolitical as possible because of the fact that we do have LPs and non-commercials on both sides of the spectrum, on both the left and the right side of the aisle. And so this is why you don't hear me giving out like endorsements or saying that the Republicans will be better, the Democrats will be better, or whatever. You know, myself, I'm a centrist with some leanings on both sides, but overall, we try to keep REC non-political. This is why we don't get into that. However, I will discuss any shortcomings of any individuals. That does not mean that's a reflection on their party. That just means it's a reflection on the individual, even if the individual is taking their lead from their party. But we don't get involved with that. We don't get involved with political parties. We don't get involved in any of that. But we do say what would happen if if this party wins versus what this party does. And I'm going to try to keep this as objective as we can. And again, thank you all for your support this past year. We look forward to 2020. The regulatory freight train is going to keep going through 2020 because we've got 19193 to deal with. We've got 17264, the public notice. We've got the Franken FMs to deal with, the elimination of the Channel 6 restrictions to deal with, and then we have Auction 106, and we have 2 possible more filing windows. We've got the end of the repack, which doesn't really affect us that much, but it's still out there. And then, of course, we have the elections coming up, and uncertainty on who's going to be sitting in those 5 desks on the first floor at the FCC once every month. So yeah, there's a lot coming up here. Stick with us. We'll try to make it easy. I promise.